Corey Radford with me today, and you are the executive director of the Fund for Vocations. Is that right?
That's correct.
Great. And you have some news that you sent over to us a few days ago. But before you go into that, can you just explain briefly for people listening to this what the Fund for Vocations does and why it's important?
Yes, sure. I'd be happy to. So, when a young man or woman feels that they've been called to religious life, Catholic religious life, and they've applied to an order and have been accepted, they have to be debt free in order to enter formation. And if they have of course, if they have student loan debt, they cannot enter until they figure out a way to get rid of that student loan debt, which when they took the loan out, obviously they thought they had 10 or 15 years to pay it off. And then all of a sudden they've got 6 months or less than a year to figure out how to get rid of all of this debt. And so that's where the Fund for Vocations comes in. These young people can apply to us for a grant, and we then, if we can accept them, then we simply take over their monthly student loan payments while they're for as long as they're in formation with the community. And then we pay off the student loan balance once they have taken final vows or become ordained. And if they discern that God is actually calling them elsewhere, they simply reassume their monthly student loan payments that we've kept up to date for them, and they don't owe us anything, and they go on to bless the church elsewhere.
And so for people that may not be familiar with Catholic religious life, so orders like the Dominicans or the Jesuits or Franciscans, and there's plenty of other great orders, but those are the ones people may be more familiar with. They have missions, whether it's education, caring for the poor, running hospitals, so they can't necessarily take on the burden of someone's $150,000 or $200,000 debt. And for most of these people, they either take a vow of poverty, or if they don't take a vow of poverty, they're not making a lot of money. They're living in a community. And so taking on that burden is just not feasible for them. And it's not feasible, obviously, for the person, because even if you're going to become a priest, you're not making enough to keep up with your debt payments. So, but you had some recent news about some people you've been able to help, and we'd love for you to share that with us.
Yes, so we're very excited to announce that we've just announced our 2020 round of funding, and we've funded 13 aspirants who are entering religious communities all over the country. And in doing that, we are actually assuming about $400,000 in student loan debt in order to make these grants. But yes, we're honored to be able to serve the church in this way.
And that's great. And you obviously don't have to go into actual people's names, and that's their, that for privacy reasons. But what is like an average person that is coming to the Fund for Vocations for help? How much student loan debt do they normally have? Maybe what have they studied, and maybe just a little bit for people to know, like, what is kind of motivating them to consider becoming a religious sister or a priest or a religious brother. What kind of motivates someone like the people you're talking to?
Right. So to start with, there's no such thing for us as an average loan. Well, there is an average, but they really range. We see anything from $8,000 or $10,000, and I've seen up to over $100,000 in debt. The average for us is probably $35,000 or $40,000 if you add them all up and divide them up in debt. These young people today, many orders actually require their aspirants to have undergraduate degrees, but even those that don't, today most young people do go to college, and many of these young people have advanced degrees as well, and they have degrees in everything you can imagine, from aerospace engineering to social work to medical degrees, biology. It really spans the gamut. But as far as what motivates them, each one of them has a really unique and interesting vocation story about how they heard, or when they heard a call or this tug that they had that they couldn't ignore. And invariably, not always, but usually there's a struggle, there's a push pull that goes on for a while. And then at some point, they decide that there's no ignoring this call, that they have to pursue this vocation and this discernment. And that's when they start looking at communities and deciding, well, if I have a call to the religious life, where should I go? And sometimes they wind up joining in the community that they might have met in their college or in their earlier years. And sometimes they look around for something a little bit different. But the only way to know for sure if you have a religious vocation really is to enter. If you think that you might, the only way you can really know is to actually enter formation and give it a try. And so that's what we encourage people to do, and try to make it, try to remove this obstacle of student loan debt so that they can enter as soon when they hear the call, and so that there isn't a delay and there's no chance for distractions during that time before they can enter.
Yeah, and I think it's really good just to explain to maybe people who aren't fully, again, fully aware of all this information. So it's not necessary that someone at 18 says, I'm going to go become a Benedictine monk. They enter the abbey and then they spend 8 years and then they become they take their solemn vows. There are people who they do retreats, or they go try for 3 months or 6 months. And I actually was just speaking the other day to a seminary president, and he said that the point of seminary is not necessarily to become a priest. It's to discern if you should become a priest. And so, for people to understand watching this, in addition to deciding that you're comfortable with a vow of poverty, which means you can't really have any personal possessions, a vow of chastity, I don't really need to explain that probably to people, and vows of obedience, you'll go where you're sent. Um, the work you do, it at least removes the burden of, okay, even if I just go and try this, at least the student loans are taken care of. And even, someone who goes in and maybe they try to become a Dominican, or they discern becoming Dominican, they go and pray, they live in the community, they try it out. It's almost like an internship, right? You see, is this a good fit for me? Is this what I feel like I want to do? Even just those 3 or 6 months or a year, that you all can maybe help them, and hopefully that it ends up becoming full time and they do enter the religious life, that's what they're called to, is helpful. It's one less burden they have to worry about for as long as they are discerning. It's one less thing. Is that a good way to say it? They can
Well,
focus fully on their discernment process.
that's exactly true. And by the time they come to us, Matt, they've already been accepted into the community. So they've already made the decision to make the leap and to enter formation. And so usually the last hurdle to entrance is this student loan debt when they come to us. And I really like that we're very streamlined. Our operational model and our mission are very streamlined. We do one thing. All we do is take on their monthly student loan payments for them so that they can enter immediately. And that way, there's no pressure to discern in also, because someone has paid off your $40,000 in debt so that you can be in formation. Sometimes that can cause a bit of pressure to discern in when actually God is calling you to do something else. So we like to think that we're promoting healthy, holy, authentic vocations by working in the way that we do.
Thank you. That's great. That's great information. So just last thing, what are some of your victories? Number of priests and religious sisters that have completed the program, and then if people want to find out more, maybe someone's watching this and they have a child who's discerning, or maybe they themselves are discerning the religious life, or they have friends who are doing so. Victories, and then where can people learn more?
Yes. Well, for starters, victories, I tell people that we have a 100% success rate because anyone who enters and spends time in formation is better off for it, and the world is better, and the church are all better off for it. So we have a 100% success rate. Over the last 15 years, we've helped almost 250 young people enter formation. Of those people, I don't actually know how many priests and sisters and nuns we have right now, but it would be probably close to 200. But again, I think we have a 100% success rate. If anyone would like to find out more, we have a great website at fundforvocations.org. And on the website, we have really a lot of great stories for people to watch and to read. About how people discerned their vocations and where they are today and what their ministries are. And we also have information about applying for grants through us. Our application season is September through November of every year. And then every March we announce the awards. And this year was only the second time in the fund's history that we accepted every qualified grant applicant. And that was because our mission partners really stepped up this year to help us make that happen. And we're hoping that moving forward, that's will be, our new tradition is being able to accept every qualified applicant because we can't afford to lose a vocation in today's culture.